Studio Ghibli is a topic that I've been really excited to talk about. I've kind of wanted to talk about it for weeks because you and I both have been kind of catching up on the Studio Ghibli catalog ever since HBO Max added pretty much all of their movies to the streaming service. And, you know, I think a lot of people were familiar with Studio Ghibli. Movies like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. We heard the names, you know, if you're into anime, like they were vastly popular films, but they didn't always feel accessible to me. I always heard the names floating around as a kid, but I didn't really know where to watch them. I had to kind of buy them on Amazon or something if I wanted to try them out. So I think that HBO Max getting the catalog has been really good for the studio and those films. And kind of, I've seen a resurgence in the films in the past, like, just this year, I would say. Like, I see a lot more YouTubers making videos about them, a lot more essays, a lot more analysis of Ghibli work, which I think is just great for everyone. Yeah. But director Hayao Miyazaki has come out of retirement to direct a film called How Do You Live? That's the American name for it. It's based on a Japanese novel from the 1930s, I believe. I'm not super familiar with what it's about. I watched some videos about the film and its development. I know that Miyazaki is really particular about this film. He's particular about all his films, but I know that this one is, you know, they said the last film was The Wind Rises was in 2013. That was like going to be his last movie. It was like, this is it. We're done retiring. He's come out of retirement for this film. And basically what I've heard the sentiment on the, I guess, animator team is that this is for real, the last one. Like, he's getting pretty old, I believe. I don't know his age, but
I think he's almost 80.
It's the sentiment that I picked up in my research was that people were like hoping that he is coherent and, you know, alive long enough to finish the movie, because he's being very particular about it. And what he said was, I don't know if this is the exact quote, but it's just taking a lot longer to get the film out. He said he used to be able to do like, I think 10 minutes, he said, of animation to get out like 10 minutes per month from the studio. And now they're getting out like 1 to 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That they're moving a lot slower. And it's something that I think he's very particular about. They were originally trying to release it this year, around the 2020 Olympics, I believe. But did those get moved? Were we supposed to? I was reading that there was like 2020 Olympics. It might have been 2021. But did they just not happen this year? Were they supposed to?
I mean,
I feel like we should know this. Did coronavirus just body the Olympics?
I don't remember hearing anything about that. I feel like I would have heard, like,
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's 2021.
Maybe.
Take that with a grain of salt. But I know they were talking about releasing it with whatever the year of the Olympics was going to be.
No, because it's got to be on even years. Because
it should have been 2020
had the
then.
Summer Olympics, 2018 Winter Olympics, 2020 Summer Olympics.
So we missed. We had no COVID. Olympics this year.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. The things that
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's hard times. But yeah, I think they were trying to release it this year, but regardless of coronavirus, I don't think they were going to get anywhere near that.
Right.
As of, I think like last year, they only had like 30 minutes. I think they were like 35 minutes into the film. It's weird how they, like, you know, in live action filming, it's like they just shoot all over the place and do all this stuff. And there's so many different processes. But when it comes to like animation, they're like, we've done 1 minute of filming or of animation. Yay, it's complete. And they're like, it's done.
Imagine like deleted scenes in animated movies. It's like, we can't delete that. We spent too long on that.
Like, oh no, we knew that scene was going in. We wouldn't have put the pen to paper. But yeah, and they're hand drawing everything, I believe, as always. But it's supposed to be a very meticulous process. I mean, obviously Miyazaki's always been meticulous, but the sentiment that I gathered is that he wants this. I believe he said, there's a quote. I don't have the exact quote. I could probably find it on my phone, but he literally said, I think it was either his son or his grandson. He wanted it to be like a love letter to him. And so it's like, he's always wanted to do his own thing with his films, but he seems extra set on it being very much like a work of art. Like, he's not particularly too worried about the commercial success of the film, or which obviously it'll probably be a commercial success to some extent because it's a Ghibli film, a lot of hype around it. But that he really wants it to be like this masterpiece. So I'm really excited to see where he goes with this. And as we've been catching up on all of his films and other Studio Ghibli films, I think for most people, it's a common sentiment that his films are the best ones that Ghibli has put out. But just reflecting on his legacy, like, he has done so many great films that to see him like have such an influence on animation, science fiction, fantasy over the years, and to see people, gather around for another film, and I know he's moved a little bit away from the more fantasy style films, but I've noticed an interesting thing as I'm watching a lot of his old films, like especially the older ones. Like, I watched Nausicaa and Valley of the Wind, obviously Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Totoro, Castle in the Sky was in the 80s before those. It's been really interesting to watch I haven't watched them all in order from like when they were released, but after watching, the first two I watched were like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. Then I went back and I've been watching the older ones kind of leading up to that. And it's really interesting to watch the progression of the films. And because I feel like with a lot of directors, especially big directors, you tend to see them want to tackle something and tackle something different with the next films. But one of the interesting things about Miyazaki to me is that he seems to work to refine similar themes in all his movies. Like, it's not just it's not just that similar themes appear in his films, like, oh, it's part of his style, like obviously stylistic themes will reappear, but like the actual themes of the films and what they're about, it's not like he's just trying to do different things with each film. It's like he's refining it, and I feel like he does it better with each film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, one of the things that strikes me about Studio Ghibli movies and Miyazaki movies in general is that like traditional American animation is often they rarely go over an hour and a half. They're always even the more adult ones are still directed at kids, attention span wise. And Studio Ghibli movies will really take their time. Like, I want to say Howl's Moving Castle is like
a
little bit over 2
hours or more.
Spirited Away is a little over 2 hours. Mononoke is like 2.5 hours. Like they all take their time and they feel very cinematic. Whereas a lot of animation is traditional, just because traditionally it is marketed towards kids, is also marketed towards a kid's attention span. Whereas
and
Miyazaki's like, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed his movies as much as a kid. I would have been, been going back to like Toy Story.
Yeah, it's actually almost surprising the success that they did garner.
Right,
which could probably be largely due to the cultural differences of them being released in over in the East earlier on, because they didn't get re-released in at least English dubbed format until the 2000s and put out in the US. But
they something about them just like I don't just feel like I'm watching a movie. Like it really does feel like a piece of art. Really, like even the shots of the train in Spirited Away. Like her riding the train are just beautiful, and they'll go on for quite some time.
Yeah,
and it's so like it's like you're just being wrapped in this like cultural blanket too.
Yeah,
because that's probably the best way to put it.
Especially Spirited Away.
Yeah,
one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is that, like I said, he doesn't. I don't feel like he's just tackling different subjects or different vibes with his movies. He keeps refining this one until I feel like he finally got it really just right, or at least close to right, like perfect. Because if you look at like Nausicaa, obviously, like if you're familiar with Miyazaki, you know that his he's very into environmentalism, or I don't know if you say like into environmentalism, but he has a lot to say about nature versus machine versus I guess the corporate aspects of capitalism, and not really against capitalism or anything, but just kind of preserving nature often about preserving nature and the purity of tradition and so forth. So it's really interesting to see him refine those concepts down, because Nausicaa, the main theme of that movie is, there's like a poison and people have to live in a specific place, and there's this forest they can't go into. It'll kill them, the poison. The insects of the forest are like, everyone's scared of them. Some people kind of want to kill them, defeat them. There's all sorts of lore within and fantastical elements of the movie. But the overarching vibe is that Nausicaa is I believe, the princess, and she's trying to preserve the forest and save them. And it's kind of a typical, oh no, we don't have to, we just need to understand them. We just need to like keep the forest safe and be nice to them and live in harmony type of thing. And quite frankly, on the surface value, in 2020, it's like, okay, nice, because it kind of feels like it's been done. But then you flip back and it's like, oh, wait a second. I think this movie was like 1984, and it really wasn't back then. And even just looking at a lot of the themes of that movie, Nausicaa seems like it was incredibly. It's been listed as a major influence on a lot of science fiction and fantasy, both directors and writers over the years. And it doesn't feel that novel now, but if you take into context the time, it was so far ahead of its time. But you see that concept being, the environmentalism and the protection of the forest and the insects and things like that being a main theme in that movie. Fast forward to 2000s, late 90s, I believe that was around the time when Princess Mononoke was coming out. We're still looking at the same themes. Mm-hmm. He doesn't leave the environmental theme behind at any point in time in his career, it feels like. At least not until Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. And I feel like almost after he finally released those two movies, he started to drift away from that concepts some more. Almost like he's like, I finally got it right. But it's interesting how he kept like refining on them over the years, because another movie that had pretty much I wouldn't say that all movies have the same message, because they're all unique in their own right. But Castle in the Sky is very much a don't touch nature type of film. Nature is too good for us, preserve the magic of it, type of film. So I don't know. I kind of love the fact that we get to see, instead of seeing a great director do a bunch of different films and just all of them be great. Obviously, most of his films I think are really great, the ones I've seen. But to watch him grow as a director has been really cool as I go back through the catalog.
Mm. Yeah, I love the like dreamlike fairy tale feeling of like Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. Like just bizarre things happen and they just sort of are accepted. Like in Spirited Away, No Face pops up and starts eating people, and then 20 minutes later she's like, want to ride the train with me? And we're just like, okay, this villain pops out of nowhere, eats some people, and now is riding a train with a child. And like it's so fairy tale, dreamlike.
There's so much unorthodox about a lot of the films.
But you never feel like it is bizarre, but it feels right for the movie always. And it's even interesting that like, I guess in Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle, like in Howl's Moving Castle, one of the witch that turns, I'm blanking on the girl's name in the movie.
I don't remember.
But the main girl in the movie turns her into like, an old lady. You think that's going to be like the villain of the movie, and then she's not really by the end of it. And same thing in Spirited Away. You think you think these people are going to be like just these evil villains, and they kind of are, but they're not.
He shies away from villains in general. Yeah, in a lot of the movies,
there's always sort of a purity to him. I don't know. They just feel it. It does feel like a nice warm blanket watching.
Feel is the key word there, in that I think he's obviously a great writer, but I don't typically think of his writing in terms of like structural, technical writing, like how he did the beats and structured the storyboard to make it like all culminate to be this great film. It's actually the feel of the movies that I feel like he constantly gets so right. And that's from everything to the themes, to the music, to the visuals. It's really just about feel. Like I adore the soundtracks to his films, and every single film always has this like I want to say iconic, not like just always the most memorable, but just to me really iconic, like melodic piano, violin, soft orchestral theme to it, or that really surrounds at least a big scene in the movie, or a big just a big piece of the movie. And I always look for those. Like I look forward to them, and that's something that he himself has cultivated, which is, with Nausicaa being his first film, that was for Studio Ghibli, or it was before Studio Ghibli was even Studio Ghibli. It was kind of like their first thing with those guys. That film doesn't have that. It doesn't have that as much, the music and stuff, but he started to lean in. He's really started to, just perfect things as he goes. I love a lot of the themes in Castle in the Sky, specifically Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, and Princess Mononoke. I think are the ones where he's really started to hit it right. And as he perfected those themes, it's really refreshing, because I don't feel like a lot of his movies are about like character. There's a lot of character in them, but they're not really very character development oriented. Like it's not really character arc oriented.
Well, they're often very adventure focused,
and they feel like, very they feel like they're a study not on a character but on a theme often.
Yeah. Well, even like Totoro is like, I can't really figure that movie out. Like I liked it a lot, but when I think about it, I go, it's like barely 90 minutes. I don't know how to describe the story of that movie. I'm not entirely sure I could tell you what it's about. It's just like this very contained, like, children's adventure, and it's so just beautiful and moving without having much of a story or any conflict. But like you can't stop watching it.
Yeah,
it's just so like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's magical from the start.
It's magic. Yeah, it feels just magical.
I was in love with the movie from the opening scenes where they're like arriving at their new house and they're looking around, and you're just honestly getting introduced to the girls, the main characters.
Yeah,
I was really in love with just the way it felt. I was in love with the way that they acted, their mannerisms.
Yeah, that movie more than
music.
anything just captured a mood and a feeling so well that like I didn't even think about until it was over that I was like, oh, there was like no story to that movie at all.
Yeah,
and like almost nothing happened.
Yeah, so the themes of I think less character development, less character arcs, more kind of studies of different types of people and different ideas. And I really think there's a lot of value to that. And I guess like I don't want every director to be like that, but it's refreshing because I feel like Miyazaki has occupied his own place. It's not just like, oh, he's a great director among great directors. I feel like he is in his own league, and not to say in his own league above other directors. I just feel like he's doing something no one else did anything like him. So it's been really fun to go back through these movies, and unfortunately I've not been able to watch all of them, but my plan was actually to watch Grave of Fireflies tonight, so I'm interested. Actually, did he do that one? I'm not even sure if he did that one, but
I want to say he did.
That's
I might be wrong about this. I want to say that's the first one, or one
that's
of the
in
first
89
ones. It was in 89.
It was in 89.
I thought it was 83 or something.
No.
Okay.
It was late. I can't
but
remember
that's
if he
still
did
one
that.
of the,
So
that's still one of the really early ones.
Yeah, it was very early. So
okay.
That's the one that's on. It's got a mystery to me because it's the one that's the main one that isn't on HBO.
I heard
Max.
it's really depressing.
So yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know how it goes. But